Was there another man involved?
My gut feeling is there could be other sponsors. She's always going to take her parents' side over yours. If there's a disagreement between what you want for them and what their parents want for them, they're always going to listen to their parents. She's going to leave you. This is a reality, which I think a lot of men with Thai wives have experienced. The women will leave you for their parents.
What's the story, everybody? Pete here from Thairish Times. As you can see, I'm not in Dublin anymore. I'm standing in Benja Kitty Park in Bangkok, one of my favourite parks. The channel was pretty much founded in this park. Right here where I'm standing now, I interviewed Steve Ross probably two and a half years ago, nearly 3 years ago now, over there, Bangkok Path, and the list goes on. So many great interviews in this park. That's why I thought I'd come back here and do the intro in this park. I feel a connection to this park. I actually love it here. So anyway, if you remember a couple of weeks ago, about 6-7 weeks ago, we interviewed Josh, who's from Malaysia, and in that interview he spoke about how he may be facing or maybe about to go through a divorce with his Thai wife. So I got in touch with him again. I said, look, you mentioned that in the interview the first time, would you be willing to come back on and talk about it? He said yes, he would. So we're going to do the interview today. He's going to talk about the warning signs that he experienced. He's going to talk about the pressure that his Thai wife put on him to build a house in Thailand. He's going to talk about how he believes there could have been other sponsors involved, which he terms as simps, who are men who show excessive sympathy to another person who doesn't reciprocate. So we're going to get into all that in this video, and I hope you enjoy it. While I'm here, I'm looking for content, so if you know anyone has an interesting story, or you have an interesting story yourself, get me on ThairishTimes@gmail.com. Let's make it happen. I hope you enjoyed the video, folks. So great to be back. Look at that, man. I'm buzzing. Let's go. Thank you very much for coming on the show again here, Josh. I'm excited to hear your story. So
It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Well, I think, as I was saying to you off camera there a couple of moments ago, your last interview with us, a lot of people really enjoyed it. There was a lot of comments that said it was one of the best interviews that we've seen on the channel. And I said to you as well off camera that you did give a really good cultural deep dive on Thai culture, which we'll get into again today. But in the first video, you mentioned that you might be heading towards a divorce, and I thought maybe we could discuss that if you're willing to come on today and talk about are there any updates in that, and then we can get more into your story.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the current updates would be that we've broken up, and sadly, and we've decided to go all the way with the separation. And the reason being because I think the harder I tried to salvage things, the more I came to realize that my wife wasn't the person that I thought she was. And I think if you're familiar with the term um, narcissistic disorder or whatever you call it, you'd understand that initially there's a lot of this love bombing, and you see a lot of this character traits that are very common amongst Thai women. They just tick all the boxes, to be that perfect person that gives you all that affirmation, the cheerleader, and all that at the beginning. And after a while, I think they're just not able to keep up with themselves. And then you realize that, like I said in the last video, it's the front of the shop, the display window is full, but unfortunately, the storage room is empty. So,
can you give us a bit of a background, just for people who don't know your story? So you married a Thai woman, and you were living together in Malaysia, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. She is a distant cousin of mine. When I say distant cousin, in the Western mind, it sounds really gross, but we're really, her grandmother and my grandmother were cousins, so that's how far apart we are. And she was a chef here in Malaysia, and she came to stay with us during COVID. And then at the recommendation of my mom, us Asians, we take our parents' recommendations very seriously. So at the recommendation of my mother and my aunt, they were like, hey, why don't you consider her? She's such a nice girl and all that. So then I said, why not? I give it a try. We started taking each other seriously, and And then we became a couple. A year later, we decided to tie the knot, So she's lived with us for 5 years. We're married about 4 years. And yep, so somewhere around last year, a year before today, is when I started to notice signs of tremendous lack of empathy. And I think, she couldn't look straight in the eye when I would ask her some things. And she started to, go away from me to take really long calls. So some of those signs were showing, and yeah, so it started to, leave a lot of doubts, and I began to realize that this doesn't add up.
You mentioned in the first video that she was kind of putting pressure on you to build a house in Thailand.
Yeah, well, and how she kind of did that was, so she went back to Chiang Rai, March this year, and it was supposed to be a temporary thing. And then, and then I realized that when I went to check her whole wardrobe, I realized that she had packed like 98% of her stuff, just a few things left, And so when I confronted her, she was like, no, because these are my things anyway. So she was never straightforward about, living for good. And so when she went back there, I felt that that life was meaningless for me here back in Malaysia, living alone, with our little poodle, And she was like, why don't you just come over here, and you could start by building a room, and then I've got land. You could build a house, And so I was actually pretty excited about the idea, but that was before I read all the comments, in my last video with Pete, and those comments that were given by you, I thank you for that. They were like warning lights just flashing right in my face, and I was like, wow, okay, I mean, you got to listen to the brotherhood sometimes. I think it's a bro code thing. You got to recognize it. I was in a lot of doubt, but it seems like then her focus turned towards the house, and she kept telling me things like, you don't just make sure you don't just say it, because the moment you say it and someone hears it, then the pressure is on, and then you've got to you've got to manifest whatever you say. And I was like, wait a minute, you never said that to me before, all of a sudden now it's such a serious thing, So I went to visit her about 2 months ago after a Bangkok business trip. I decided to fly up north to Chiang Rai, where she's from, and then yeah, even just a mere mention of, I think this is a good place to build a house. It's just because her mom is at the back of the car, her aunt is there, and she's like, okay, you got to be careful. She warned me, she's like, okay, when you say it out, you got to do it. You got to do it. And I was like, I never knew such things existed. I mean, Thai culture, from what I know, is they say one thing and do another. Right? Very often, a lot of things that they say, because Thai culture is not a very direct culture. They tend to beat around the bush a lot. This thing called kreng chai, supposedly, which is being over considerate, that makes them unable to speak very straight, supposedly. And so all of a sudden, it's like switch and bait. Like all of a sudden, it's like my word is gospel truth. My word is my promise. I'm like, where did that come from? So that's when I kind of realized that this is a bit weird as well, right? Because I mean, when sometimes you just want to kind of what we call cast vision, right? You just want to just speak it out and say, hey, what do you think? What do you think? We build a house here or whatever, right? You kind of discussing, but it was like as if my words were gospel truth all of a sudden. Yeah, especially to do with the house.
She left with all her stuff, went back to Thailand. You were apart, but you were still together. The marriage hadn't broken up.
Absolutely.
And then there was conversations about the house in the meantime.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I went to visit intermittently, and that's when I realized that, it was getting serious. And also, she started to change. she wouldn't pick up my calls at certain times. She would say that, she can't get any signal. I mean, which I can understand, but sometimes it was all kinds of excuse as to why she wouldn't pick up my calls.
Was there another man involved?
I don't know, to be honest with you. According to some of my friends, my Thai friends, that isn't that type. Yeah, but you never know.
What's your feeling? What's your gut feeling?
My gut feeling is there could be other sponsors. I wouldn't say it's an intimate relationship because Thai women have been known, well, at least in Malaysia, to have a couple of if you know what sponsors mean, these are sims, what we call sims in today's world, right? These are men who like this particular women and they're willing to, pay for buy a house, and sometimes they don't even meet, they just want someone to speak to and someone to spoil and to feel that they're being hurt, so these men have got issues and they're sims basically, and they do anything for women.
All right, so your gut feeling is there could be someone else involved, all right? So, okay, how did it actually end? What did you say, and what's the next step? Is it full-on divorce, or are you going to fight this? Is this a legal battle, or what's going to happen?
No, there's no legal battle, and it's very straightforward. And so the final straw was I was supposed to meet her in Hat Yai sometime actually around coming week. This coming week, right? And early September actually, or so. And she had asked me to buy her some carving knives from Malaysia for the rubber trees, okay? Because supposedly Malaysian rubber tree carving knives are pretty good, much better than Thailand. So I had to rush 2 hours south of Kuala Lumpur. I had to drive there to go get those knives. And when I got there, I found out that they had all kinds of shapes, all kinds of sizes. I tried calling her again, and she wasn't picking up. And I was like, I made a 2 hour investment driving south, but she wasn't picking up. And that's still okay. All right. So on the way back, she finally returns my call and I say, oh, honey, I was trying to call you. I was trying to verify exactly what you needed. So I bought 3 types, which is, okay. And then she started disrespecting me, and she was like, I already told you that I'm busy, and she started talking to her friends around her while I'm talking to her over the phone. And she knows that by this time I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little heated up. And instead of giving me just a little respect, right? Just, this conversations between you and me, she starts talking to friends around her as if my conversation with her is completely unimportant. And she knows it's a 2-way drive south, 2-way drive back to Kuala Lumpur, and I had an appointment after that. So it's 4 hours of my time, which I don't mind, absolutely don't mind. I'll do it for love. I do it for the people I love, right? And yeah, she was so laissez-faire about it, and she didn't seem to appreciate that, So then I realized something is wrong. Something is really gravely wrong. And I confronted him. I said, you know what? Hey, I said, I don't know what the deal is, but we're having a conversation here. Can you just not talk to somebody else and give me a bit of airtime? I'm talking to you right now. Have some respect, Why are you talking to your friends around you? And she kept mouthing over. She was like, oh, he wants, and she spoke very sarcastically. She was, oh, I'm not supposed to talk to anybody. I'm just supposed to talk to him over the phone. And that's when I blew it. And I was like, I blew my top. And I says, that's extremely disrespectful. I told her straight, that's extremely disrespectful. That's not the way you treat your husband, right? I don't care whether you're Thai or whatever, but there's no way to treat your husband or even a friend. Even if you're friends, you don't treat friends like that, right? So that's when I begin my really, really tough soul-searching journey before I made that decision 5 weeks ago, thereabouts. Yeah, 4 weeks ago now, 4 weeks now. That I think this isn't going anywhere. Because prior to that, I've just been seeing too many changes. It's like I almost don't recognize the person that I'm speaking to over the phone anymore. She's changed so much. She's so much colder, so much more indifferent, apathetic towards me, So it's like we don't have a relationship anymore. And that's when I decided, that I had to free myself from this toxicity because obviously I was missing her. I loved her very much and I was very sincere about the relationship, but it wasn't going anywhere. And I just felt shortchanged all the time and uncared for. There was a time. Oh, yeah, sorry. There was one more incident, which, yeah, that's kind of put the final nail in the coffin is that when I think I've been so stressed out about the whole incident and I was losing sleep. I was very busy with work. And I had an incident where I kind of fainted, while working. Then because I live alone, I had to admit myself to a hospital nearby. And when I told her about it, she was like, "Oh, you're in a hospital?" This was a response, okay? And this was a text. And she was like, "Oh, you're in the hospital? Okay, good to know. Good night." That's it.
Wow, that's cold, man.
Yeah, there wasn't like, "Are you sure you're okay? What does the doctor say?" You know? And I was like, okay. Am I being overly demanding here? Am I being overly sensitive here? I don't need her to do anything because she's not here, right? She can't do anything about it. So instead of confronting her, I waited 2 or 3 days and then I asked her again. I said, "Hey, just the other day when I had a little scare and I fainted, I said, I'm just surprised that the only reaction you had was, oh, good to know you're at the doctor's and good night." And I asked her why. And her answer was simply this. She said, "Well, because I knew you were the doctors that you in safe hands and there's nothing I can do about it. So I just said, good night." So in her mind, job done, job done. In other words, she does not have a single slightest iota uh, of capacity for human empathy.
Yeah, well, I would say probably at that point she had already made her mind up. She just couldn't tell you. Do you find that would she be the one if you said nothing? Say you said, "Okay, I'm gonna just see how long it takes her to say it's over." Do you think in Thai culture, do you think that she'd be able to do that? Because, like you said earlier, it's not a direct culture, and I have heard stories of guys that are in relationships and the relationship is it's over. I'd say the woman is not happy, but she can't bring herself to actually have the conversation because it's too hard for Thai people to have those conversations. Now that's obviously just some experiences. Other experiences have been different. But if you had said nothing, would she have been able to tell you that she's not happy and she wants a divorce?
Well, I think it's not just Thai culture here, but um, I think we've established this understanding in our last video that a lot of them are somehow narcissists because of uh, insecurity, right? Like my Bangkok friend who's very exposed to international community because she's been working in international companies for all her life. And she tells me this, and I'm going to reiterate it. She said, Josh, the number one problem with Thai women is insecurity. And insecurity is number one recipe for narcissism. So then the next is either they're grandiose, narcissistic, or they're covert. So I think those who are grandiose will just shut you in your face and say, we're over. And I have female Thai friends who, when I confided in them, they told me, yep, they are the types who says, we're done. And then they'll block you on all channels. That's why you see a lot of time women have like multiple Facebook accounts. Go figure, okay? But my wife is the covert type. She will never confront. She will never tell it as it is. And she will just float with it because they don't want to be the bad guy. That's what a narcissist is. They don't want to be the bad guy. They always want to be seen as the good guy, the good person, who didn't call it off. Because whenever I mention, I said, I think this is it. I think I'm walking out of this, Her answer is this. Ready for it, guys? Her answer is this. Well, you're the one asking for it. I didn't ask for it. You're the one walking away. That's it. So basically the blame comes back to me that I call it off, that I'm the fool to walk away from this. It's never like, but honey, what's going on, or let's work this through. I've never heard those words come out of her mouth. Never once, let's work this through. Is there anything I can do better? Is there anything you and I can do better? Is there something that we can work on? Never, not a single word. I mean, I can't really come to think about it. Someone who's really sincere, they won't give up so easily. They're going to tell you there's something we can do about it, right? There's something we can work out. What is it? What are the real issues? Can we solve this? Can we compromise? Right? But I never had those words come out of my mouth.
Let's talk about the divorce proceedings. You're going to follow through with the divorce in Malaysia, is that right?
Yeah. And it's very simple. In Malaysia, you just get what we call 2 signatures and it's done.
Yeah, but can she take half your assets?
No.
She doesn't have any claim or anything on your assets or finances or anything.
She doesn't. Yeah. It depends on the lawyer's letter and how the clauses work out. But no, we didn't have any prenup, nothing. So she's not going to get anything. So yeah, at least that part is good and clean. I don't have to really worry about that.
And what was her reaction when you told her that you want a divorce?
Her reaction was extremely calm. Extremely calm. It's like calm to the point that it's just way too silent, just too quiet. And she was like, yeah, well, it's your call.
How old is she, if you don't mind me asking?
She's 50 this year.
Okay. Does she have any kids?
51. Yeah, she has her own her own 2 kids.
Are they grown up?
They're 22. The daughter's 22. Her son is 27.
And she's back in Thailand now, is she?
She's back in Thailand. Oh, and here's another funny thing, right? So the daughter used to call me dad, right? Initially. And then starting last year, when the daughter came here for a holiday, stayed with us for about a month. She was supposed to stay for a month, and she cut her trip short by 2 weeks. And I could see there were changes, and she started calling me uncle after that. I was like, that's weird, from dad to uncle. In Thai would be Paul, right? She would call me Paul. To Lung means uncle. I was like, what's going on? So yeah, I do get that she would like an original father and mother unit to reconcile. Maybe, I don't know. So I just made an assumption. I never quite confronted that issue, but that was one of the things that I observed. Yeah.
You mentioned there at the start, before we started the interview, you said it's hard to find a Thai woman to meet you in the middle, the midway point, you said before we started. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that for the viewers?
Okay. Now, before I explain it, I just want to put it out there that whatever I'm going to say in the next 5 minutes or so, you might prejudge me because you know my story, and you know that I'm recently getting this divorce, and you're probably you're going to make that conjecture that I'm speaking from a place of deficit, and I'm probably bitter. But there's another side to the coin of it, whereby I think it's just what we call the bro code, right? If I don't tell you some of the key learnings that I've learned, that I've gleaned from this situation, then I make that pain my own, and no one else benefits from it. So I always believe that why let the pain go to waste when it can be shared, and then you can make your own conclusion as to whether what I'm saying is true or not. So let me just put it out there first, that my intentions are pure, and I just want to say it so that the rest of Pete's audience here, who hear what I'm sharing today, will not fall into the same trap. Okay. Now, what I mean by meeting halfway is that if you can actually find a Thai woman who can at least compromise, their culture and how they're so hardwired, and meet you halfway somewhere, I think you're considered one of the luckiest guys already. But from what I observe is that a majority of them are just so hardwired in their ways, right? Such that its change is almost non-existent, right? And if you see, I think that's why they have been the way they have been for years and years and years and years. And of course, there's a lot of social engineering that goes on in Thailand, whereby the citizens, by and large, are kept ignorant, okay? And part of it is by making sure that they don't really learn English. If you've been for the English lessons, apart from the ones that are taught by Westerners, the Thai person learns English, if I'm not mistaken, for 12 years, and yet they cannot string a simple sentence together. And that's, I believe, on purpose, so that they're kept out of Western philosophy, Western thinking, which I think the government is afraid it would liberate them. And so they're kept in this echo chamber, with this funnel that keeps their minds really narrow. And, like we established in the first video, that it's already such a homogenous culture, right? If you're Thai, you're Thai, that's it. There's no such thing as Thai Chinese or Thai Indian or Thai whatever. You're just Thai, basically. It's monoculture, right? It's a behemoth like China. It's just one singular culture, one singular mindset, right? And one of the things that very few of them can ever compromise would be this thing called katanyu. We've spoken about this before, and katanyu is filial piety. Now, filial piety in the Thai mindset is father, mother comes first before you. Is this something you can accept? I think if you marry a girl who doesn't respect her parents, now that's a red flag, right? But a girl who puts her mother and father first, that's another red flag, I tell you. Because if they're okay, if they're good, if they're kind, and they understand and they support the marriage, then it's fine, But let's say if you have a disagreement, she's always going to take her parents' side over yours, If there's a disagreement between what you want for them and what their parents want for them, they're always going to listen to their parents. It's not as easy as it seems. You can go and say, oh, well, I respect a girl who respects her parents. No, it's not about respect, They literally put their parents on a demigod level, to the point that, if the parents say, come home, I'm lonely and I'm sick, whatever, not, she's going to leave you. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but this is a reality, which I think a lot of men with Thai wives have experienced. The women will leave you for their parents, because for them is, if I didn't have parents, I wouldn't be here on planet Earth. They don't realize that the husband and wife relationship, they don't have this concept. It's something that can never get absorbed in their heads, In the same way, putting mom and dad first above all else cannot get into our heads. They're just on the opposite side of things. I wouldn't say opposite sides. They're on the opposite spectrum of things. It's just so far away, So that's always going to be a challenge, unless you are someone without a spine and you can take second, third place. Because not only their parents, their sisters and their brothers are probably going to be first, right? And then children, third. And then you're probably going to be fourth. So if that's something you can live with, and you find that your decisions get usurped by what their parents say and what their sisters and brothers say, that'd be my guess. That's the reality. But if they can meet you halfway and say, okay, my parents said this, but I think there's a compromise here. Can we try to do this? Can we try to work this out? If they come to you and say, let's work things out and let's find a midpoint, I think you're considered very lucky already. I was just talking to another Thai woman who lives here in Malaysia as well. And she told me very honestly, she's one of the rare ones. She said, I'm sorry, Josh, but that's the way it is. Most of us are like that. I am one of the exceptional few. I left my parents for my husband, and we have a great relationship. And I'm like, oh, could there be more women like you, please? Can you make carbon
Marry
copies
me.
Oh, no.
Divorce him and marry me.
Yeah. She could do that in a heartbeat for me. She's going to do it to me as well, for someone else. So anyway.
So Josh, do you have any hard feelings about Thai women now that this has happened? Are you you used the word bitter earlier on? Could you see? Do you have any hard feelings, and could you see yourself maybe finding another Thai woman, or is that it now? That it now? You're like, okay, no more Thai women for me.
You know what? I'm at a 50-50 point. I think part of me, um, obviously I feel really burned. I feel that like I've been cheated, you know, that I've been seeing a smoke screen, uh, as opposed to what's really genuine. But the other part of me wants to believe that there's someone good out there, you know, and I don't think there is one race that they're they're evil, they're bad altogether. I see Thai women as victims of them, of their own selves. They've created this situation. Their culture is so narrow. They've created this for themselves. You know, they're victims of themselves. You know, if you ask me, and they stand to lose. End of the day, they stand to lose. You know, I may have lost one person, but I think a lot of Thai women are just going to shoot themselves in the foot again and again and again and again. There's so many good men out there who really want to take care of them and give them a better life, not just them, but their family as well. But they keep shooting themselves, and not just them, their parents are in cahoots with them, keep shooting themselves in the foot. And they will continue in that cycle until such time they experience some kind of a renaissance, a cultural renaissance, where they learn to, you know, to be more sincere, to understand that you can be sincere and still gain. Because for them now, it's more like, you know, what can I get? What's in it for me? What can I get? What's in it for me? Right? I mean, there's always an element of selfishness in every relationship. You're always asking yourself, what's in it for me? But you also ask yourself what I would like to do for that person, right? There's that give and take, you know. But currently, I think the mindset of a typical Thai woman, especially from out of town at least, you know, I'm not talking about the girls, the bar girls and the massage girls. They are just all for themselves, you know. But everybody else who is out of town, I think, by and large, I think the mentality is more of what can you give for me and my family? That's primary. That's the front seat, guys. That's the front seat. Okay. And what I can do for you, that's like the auxiliary, you know. It's just, you know, it's just by the way kind of thing. How I can benefit you is really by the way from what I see. You're never the main character in her story.
Here's one for you. I've often wondered this. With the cultural differences between East and West, and say Thai culture and Western culture, is how do I word this? It's the level of commitment and loyalty different. Do Thai people have that a different, like for us, for Westerners, you get married, it's the ultimate commitment. You know, it's a loyalty, it's a commitment to someone, and it's a decision that most Westerners take carefully, and it's a calculated decision. But do Thai people have a different level of commitment and loyalty where they can walk out easier, or they maybe cheat easier? Is it just a different level?
I would say yes and no. Yes, because I think commitment is universal. Anywhere you go, people are committed to something, right? It's just that the very base of it, which are the value systems, are extremely different, and it's diametrically different. So here you have the Western mindset, like mine, whereby we value the husband and wife relationship. We understand that society is based on the husband and wife relationship because we are largely urbanized and we live in nuclear families. That's what we call it, right? You know, we don't have uncles, aunts, cousins all around us to support us, and therefore that sense of interdependency, that codependency, is very strong, and therefore our value systems have over time changed and morphed into this high commitment and value that we place on a husband-wife relationship. But these guys are still, by and large, very agriculture, and they live in their mubans or the villages where they're surrounded by everybody. They've got a massive support system. And no matter how good looking and how wonderful you are and how wonderful husband you are, you're just a small little speck in the whole support system that they already have. Can you imagine that, right? So you can imagine they're so rooted in that support system that you are just like an appendix to the whole system. So their commitment is there, but not to you. It's going to be to that support system in which they are tied to by the umbilical cord. And most of them don't have that umbilical cord cut. I've seen some videos of, Thai women talking about their culture and how they have kind of unplugged, from their support system. And they find themselves dating foreign men more than dating their own people. But sometimes, things like this, it's so hardwired in them, they may kind of U-turn at the later stage, and those things when they kick in, and then you realize, wait a minute, this woman who left her whole family to follow me, far away, all of a sudden is reconnecting back to that support system that she's so familiar with. And all of a sudden you realize that you've been kicked out of the equation without even knowing, because she doesn't even know it, that it's happening, right? So there's always that possibility. I mean, a lot of people who are so confident about their marriages usually are in the first few years, things are still very rosy. And you know what they say, when you have your rosy glasses on, you can't see the red flags. An unfortunate truth, So, and with time, you see them reconnecting back with mothership, right?
What's your next move now, Josh? What's next for you?
Well, next for me would be to stay single for a while. Definitely, I need to detox. I need to just clear my head, and I've got businesses in Thailand which I need to still carry out. So I need to still meet them, talk to them, and perhaps find a different perspective about the Thai women. I've got some good Thai women friends, and I'm very thankful for them for for telling me the absolute truth about the strengths and the weaknesses of the Thai culture. So there are a few good ones out there, but yeah, I'm yet to find one. But I told my friends, I said, if I find another Thai woman who is of really good character and not a narcissist and truly loves me for who I am, and I'd be more than happy, because I think end of the day, it's not just whether she's Thai or not. I think if she's Thai, there's added value, though, because I still believe that there's something good about the Thai culture. But I think in like in anything else, too much of a good thing is not good. And like I say, filial piety on steroids is what Thai culture is about, and that's extremely unhealthy. Being too individualistic in the Western culture is not very healthy either, because then you don't have to depend on each other, and that's why people walk out of marriages as well. So it goes both ways, right? So I guess the short of the long answer is, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to keep my mind, my heart, I'm going to keep it open, to options. And I would certainly love to be married. I can't imagine the rest of my life being single. That's just not me. That's not who I am. Yeah.
Well, look, man, best of luck. Keep your chin up, and maybe down the line you can update everyone again on how you're doing. And I just wish you the best of luck, man. It's a tough time in your life, and just keep the chin up. You know that there's an end game. You'll eventually come out the other end of this.
Thank you, Blake. Thank you, guys.